Good day, friends. Delighted to be here at Transworld's office in Jafsa, Dubai. As usual, we have a fascinating individual and a great human being that we're going to be speaking to. Ramesh Ramakrishnan has been super kind to give me this opportunity of an interaction with him at a very short notice. So firstly, thank you, Ramesh, so much for sparing your time. We will be talking about Ramesh's journey in building Transworld into a global giant in the logistics space. I've been always fascinated by how he has scaled his enterprise. It's a typical immigrant story, a lot of hard work, lot of grit, lot of passion, lot of customer focus. But what really touched me about Ramesh's story is the value systems with which he has run his company, his very sharp focus on social impact, which I'm sure we'll be learning more about, and also a very strong sense of belonging to his roots and a very strong sense of gratitude to his family. So I think what we are going to be discovering today is going to be a fascinating mix of both tradition and modernity, of a story from India and overseas, and of a business that actually spans multiple verticals. So Ramesh is into, of course, logistics, but is also into distribution, into food processing, and he is into aircraft charters. And I'm sure there is much more that I'm not fully aware of that we're now going to discover from Ramesh. So this is going to be a very interesting story for me, as much as it's going to be for you. So let me start by congratulating you on your wonderful journey so far. It's been phenomenal to see the progress, and also in the background we can see the award that you received from the President of India, the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Puraskar. So congratulations. I think it's a testimony to the many decades of hard work and social impact that you have delivered. So if I may kick off by asking you to maybe recount your story from Kerala to Mumbai to Dubai.
Thank you very much, Venkat, for coming in and meeting up with me. It's always a pleasure to meet people who've been keen to kind of understand entrepreneurs. To me, this is a story where I get an opportunity to reinvent myself and start thinking of what I've gone through. Transworld as an organization today completes 48 years of being in presence. In a couple of years' time, we'll be celebrating 50 years. That's a huge landmark for us, especially being in an industry which is highly capital intensive, with so much of risk attached to that. I think we have survived these challenges over the past many, many years and reached a position where we can very safely say that many more years are there for us to grow our business substantially. This business was started way back in the year 1977 by my late father. He worked in Kuwait in the late 60s. He was actually went in as a stenographer in a shipping agency. In the year 72 or 73, he moved from Kuwait to Dubai. Remained to be the manager of that particular agency house. And much later, in the year 1976, he came in contact with a gentleman called Dr. Ravano, who happened to be running a shipping line from Italy, coming all the way up to Dubai and then going off to Khorramshahr in Iran and then going back to Europe. He felt that rather than the ship going back without anything, why not propose to Dr. Ravano that you should try and go into a port like Bombay and then see what you can get out of that and then take it back, At that point of time, there was a very strong consortium called the Indian Container Lines, who actually had a very dominant position wherein they never wanted any of these cargoes to be loaded on any other non-conventional lines. So Conship happens to be one of the first lines we went into Bombay. The first loadings were 10 and 15, but not very easy. Those who loaded on the Indian Container Lines were supported by the government. But a non-conventional operator like this to go in is next to impossible. And we had the self-belief that this is the way to start. And that ship went into Bombay, started off with 15, then went up to 50. In a year's time, we were doing close to about 100, 250 containers. Business started settling down. Right. My father is originally from the southern part of India. And then he worked with some of the shipping companies in Kerala. We had no connection whatsoever with Bombay. We had no knowledge what is there possible in Bombay, no friends, nobody. So when this agency was rewarded, he went to one of the chartered accounting firms with an interest to start a company. But at that time, there was another South Indian gentleman who was also an auditor in that company. He saw him and he said, okay, fine, Swami, I'll help you. And that was the birth of Transworld in the year 1977, 31st of December. But it had its own challenges. And I was a very young boy and I was studying in Kollam. That's where my family was settled. And then while this was starting off in Bombay, my father said, let's try and see whether we can make a living out of Bombay. That was the time when I moved into Bombay and I went into a college there. I don't think there's any other city in India which gives you that ability for you to study and at the same time work as much as you want during the day. And more importantly, the studying and the work, what it gives you is your ability to interact with people, interact with the same generation of people who are all thinking, how do I come in with 100 rupees this morning and how do I take back 110 rupees? This kind of a conversation right at that young age is what you keep hearing time and time over again with all these friends. So that gave you a very solid footing. And when I moved from Kerala to Bombay, you are struggling to articulate. You may be speaking Shakespearean English in Kerala, but when you come down to Bombay, you don't know how to speak the local language. You don't know how to speak your English. You don't know where you are. But it took you some time. It took me a year and a half before I got used. But I had the flexibility at that time to go to the college in the morning at 7, finish at 10, and then go straight to the office and keep working. But I must say that in the year 1981, we bought the first container ship of our own because we always had a dream that we are associated with the shipping industry. We have to start looking at this as a possibility. 81, we bought the first container ship. It was a French ship, a second-hand one. The original name of the ship was called Dione, D-I-O-N-E. Okay. And we renamed her as Khalij Express. But it wasn't an easy journey. We were losing money. Passion is there. Belief is there. But this is what happens sometimes. You may not really look at the potential risk there, but you just jump into something with the belief that it is going to succeed.
It's going to work.
So we went in and got into that. And it was struggling for some time. And that is about the time the principal for us came back and said that, listen, you guys are running your own ship and you're losing money. And if this way it goes on, I'm going to be sitting here in a very unsafe situation. And therefore, we may have to relinquish this relationship with you. They still are friends with us. But we went right across and said that, okay, fine, let's relinquish this. Because if you feel unsafe with us, I think it's the best way to go and let's remain as friends. Suddenly a good business suddenly disappears from you. What do? So it gave us the courage and determination and belief that we have to bring incrementally more number of agencies into our fleet.
Avoid the concentration risk.
That's right. Yeah. So we did that from the year 1983, 84 till close to 2005. Transworld was perhaps handling nothing less than 15 to 20% of anything that comes in and went out of India, which means that we had secured a number of shipping agencies under our belt. Right. But we had a philosophy that we cannot have conflict of interest and we had to set each one up in separate entities. Right. That is one of the foundations on which we sort of built the organization. So when we built, so many agencies were there, and we also realized that when these sort of agencies we represented, what we did was to tell them, this was the innovation that I want to tell you, because you got to be understanding what's there available. So there's a customer who wants, because you have created a good name, you understand what your customer wants. Much later, we realized that there's a lot of opportunities of ships still coming and going back from here. We said, we will bring those empty containers back into Bombay, secure cargo and return it back to you in Dubai, and you take it up and go and deliver wherever you have against our original bill. Right. That was the biggest break that we got. Right. So everything that we did largely was understanding your customer needs and trying to work a structure out to see what we can do for them. Right. That was the great start that we had. Started off very well, worked very, very hard and built it up. Of course, my father passed away in the year 1989. He was hardly 56, 57 in that time, and I was about 19 or 20. So that was the time when I had to go in and take on this responsibility
at a very young age.
And then see how we could build it up. And I must say that over the years, one of the biggest assets that I have is the people. I think anything and everything can be built only with people. If you are able to connect with your people, if you are able to guide them, if you are able to nurture them, if you are able to stand behind them and show them your vision,
Right.
share with them your vision and ensure they are partaking in your vision and working along with you.
Right.
I think that's been one of the greatest learnings that I've had. It is the people. You may talk of technology, you may talk of everything that's coming in today, but I think, in my opinion, people can never ever be displaced. Even if AI, that's the kind of
The buzzword
buzzword today, I still think that you cannot displace people.
Sure.
The people may have to be reskilled, right skilled,
Correct.
but they
still need
cannot be
people to run that,
displaced. This is something which I'm very, very clear in my mind. And that's been the mantra that we've been following over the years. My father passed away in 1989. At that time, we had one small ship and we had a few containers on board. That's the time when I switched ends and came here and said, we have to
Scale the business in Dubai.
That's right. How do we take it up from here? Not easy at all, because the banks don't understand. Scale wasn't there. Challenge to raise capital, trust, all these things were coming in and playing upon you. But we never gave up the passion and then the self-belief that we had. I think I recollect an instance where in 1991, I had the chance of attending a meeting in Delhi, which is the Foreign Institutional Promotional Board or something. It was called FIPB at that time.
FIPB, that's right.
FIPB, yeah. So at that time, we had Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, and then we had Dr. Manmohan Singh, who was the Finance Minister at that time. I was very young, not knowing what is really going to happen. So I had the chance of shaking hands with Dr. Manmohan Singh, and he said that we need young people like you to come and set up business here and start being a part of the story. That was the beginning of it. So in 1993, we set up an Indian company, again, with a belief that there is going to be something that is going to be special for Indian operators.
Right.
We set up a company called Shreya Shipping, and we got it listed in the Bombay Stock Exchange way back in 93. And that has become a very strong brand over the years. And I think we have close to 10 or 12 ships that operates all the time around the Indian coast, giving us a tremendous penetration on the coastal shipping of India. Everything is a backward-forward connection. Thankfully, God's grace, we have grown to this extent.
Thanks for this, Ramesh. This is wonderful, very inspiring. So tell us a little bit about maybe the top one or two things that you learned from your dad. You must have been super young at that time,
Yes.
right? But I'm sure you would have learned a ton by just seeing your dad at work. So what are the top 2 or 3 takeaways from that experience?
You know, one of the experience which I mentioned a while back, which I continue to even maintain because my children also do the same thing, the nurturing, the mentoring and dealing with people, I think is the key. Any amount of challenge that you may face, at the end of the day, how do you tackle, how do you assist, how do you live with your people, how do you help them to grow? That is one of the mantra that I followed. Secondly, you had to be absolutely clear in your execution. You may have a lot of ideas, you can have a lot of vision, you can have a lot of plans, but if you don't execute them to the T and start monitoring them, and we are very particular about that. So everything has to be done within a time frame.
Right.
There has to be a start and an end date.
Right.
It has to be extremely monitored. It has to be closely looked at, and not to forget your customer's expectation. I see we had the philosophy that you got to understand your customer's challenge. And if you don't start working on creating solutions
Right.
to resolve those matters, you're only going to be kind of commoditized and you'll be forgotten over a period of time.
The philosophy is how do you make your customers win?
That's right. And if you don't understand their pain points,
Right.
and what is their pain points that they are facing with their customers, and then start architecting a solution for them. And that's the way we have to go. So people are very important. Plan, vision is very important. Execution, that is the key. Execution, in my opinion, is extremely important for any business to succeed. It can be small, it can be big, it can be any size. Execution is the key. And then you have to empower your people. For us, it's simple. The philosophy is very clear. If somebody joins Transworld today, goes through an interview process and becomes a part of the Transworld family, he is trusted on the day one.
So the starting point is to say that, look, we trust you.
That's very important. So you empower them. You make them inclusive in all the discussions. You don't try and hold back data which they should or should not know. Everything is shared to them. Because we start from the point of trust. So fundamentally, that self-belief, execution is the key. Empowering your people, and giving them the right tools to work and survive, and understanding your customer's challenge. This has been the philosophy from the day one. We started off as an agency way back. We became a ship owner. We invested in containers. When we had ships and we had containers, we realized that that's going to help us to grow. We're going to invest more into containers.
Right.
So whatever space that is taken away by the main lines, the remaining we had to sell. So we added on containers, we added more ships. When we did all that, we realized that we need to have a transport system, we need to have a warehousing, we need to have distribution, we need to have all of that. So everything has happened to us more from what a customer really wants.
Right.
And everything is a backward and forward
Integration to keep serving their needs.
That's
really.
right, with absolute clarity of execution. And that's been our success. You can't measure the value of your people from a balance sheet number. It is the people. To me, that is something which can never ever be disconnected from whatever you've done.
People talk about off-balance sheet liabilities, but this is an off-balance sheet asset. I mean, how do you measure the culture or the DNA of the people in an organization?
We don't call people as resources. They're assets.
Yeah, this is what Sadhguru says, right? Yeah. Human is not a resource. So really 3 takeaways from your dad. One is trust people, empower them. Second is anticipate your customers' pain points and needs and figure out how to serve them. Third is a very sharp focus on execution. So you talked to us, Ramesh, about how you started with one ship. So can you give us currently what is the scale of Transworld? What are the different businesses that you're into?
Yeah.
And if you're able to share some numbers in terms of maybe the number of countries, number of people that you employ. Yeah.
Today, as we speak, as a ship owner, we have 30 ships in our fleet. These are container ships. These are called feeder container ships. We don't do the long haul. We do the regional shipping. Size of these ships range from 7,000 to about 2,500. We do have bulk carriers. We do the handy size bulk carrier, which is in the size of about 38,000 to 40,000 tons. So between the container and the bulk carrier, we have about 30 ships. This is divided between our UAE operations, where we fly the foreign flag, and plus the Indian operations, which flies the Indian flag. We have the relationship with our wonderful partners, Dubai Ports World, where we operate a company called Unifeeder, where we are partners with them, which is perhaps one of the largest operators in the world. I think they operate close to about 150 to 160 ships around the world, Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, Mediterranean. We are partners with them. Delighted that we are partners with them because our association stands for almost 40 years. And we've grown substantially under their wings. And we've built a very strong bonding with them. This sort of trust and these kind of partnerships don't happen overnight. The kind of trust that they start having in you, the kind of integrity that you sort of put through in anything that you do. But you can't obviously, I always tell my people that if you put a seed here, you can't make it into a tree tomorrow in the morning. You've got to nurture that. You've got to take time. So this is what we did. And the level of trust that we have with our partners and friends in them speaks volumes about what we've been able to do in the last 47, 48 years. So we run a beautiful business with them, which is one of the largest operator. We have a distribution business here. We have a very active supply chain management. We have an active warehousing. We're now in the process of enhancing that space. We want to get into a much larger space, maybe hopefully by next year end.
So how large is the current space, Ramesh?
Here, what we have is about 70,000 pallet space that we operate from here.
Okay.
And when we're going to go to the next place, we will have about 150 to 200,000 pallet space.
So this is a significant expansion. It's like almost 3x essentially.
That's right. Puts us into a very, very large scenario. Apart from the warehousing and the distribution and all of that, we also have a luxury aircraft charter operating. We own 4 of those luxury aircrafts. That's all largely operating from here and as well as in India. Looks like a very potential business because I think I see a lot of startups, a lot of aspirational dream that is there. And everybody wants to be using these kind of facilities. So I think that's another space that is continuously growing. We are looking at, on an ongoing basis, add more and more the facilities in India as well, in terms of the warehousing and distribution and multimodal logistic parks, continuously seeing what we need to do. As we speak, we have in Transworld close to about 900 employees that work for us across the board, right here in India, in the US, in Southeast Asia, and all these places put together. On both the ships, we have at any given time close to about 1,000 people working, sailing on the ships, etc. But I think what we are very, very keen to see is once we have the new logistics center, obviously the number of people that we employ will be far more greater and significant. Right. My motivation is also to see how we can have more people, most people employed, more stomachs filled, and more families
supported. Yeah. The social impact angle. So if you can kind of take a step back, right, and see the method in the expansion plan. So if you can walk us through what is the value chain here, Ramesh, right, and how are you kind of thinking about? Is this more like a backward integration that you're getting into?
Yes, two things. 90% of the global trade moves by ships. We are in that space, and we believe that that's a very important area for us to be in and continue to thrive and grow. Second thing, we believe that as long as human beings are alive, food is going to be something that's going to be very important. Given that we are in this area, food security is something which is extremely important for the Middle East, actually. And their dependence on India is significant. We have also set up a food processing unit in India.
Right.
And we are also establishing ourselves in other areas. At the moment, it's in Baroda in Gujarat. Right. But our plan is to have more such plants, much smaller ones, not the same levels as what we have in Baroda,
sure,
but in other areas in India as well, which can supplement the main requirement.
Got it.
Everything is done with a very clear-cut plan. And now that we have this warehousing and distribution and supply chain and all the rest of it, how do we again scale that up from
put it
there?
to use for the food processing side of it.
So this is the whole idea. So one feeds into the other. And of course, technology plays a very important role. It kind of over-encompasses everything. And I find that, I mean, you understand technology better than me, but I find that whatever you do, whatever you try and create today, by the time you are ready, the expectations are very different. So we go through these challenges very regularly, but it's a very exciting situation. So over a period of time, it's been backward, forward integrated, well thought out growth. I mean, we don't grow for the sake of growing. It has got to have a relevance to the values that we have, to the core values that we truly believe in. It has to fit into our higher purpose.
Right.
So all these are very, very relevant and very important in the way we do things.
Which is really the philosophical why of what you're currently doing.
That's right.
So if I'm understanding this right, there is the logistics piece where you're now expanding the warehousing facility. But would it be fair to say that the food processing aspect of it, is that like an adjacent diversification?
It is an adjacent diversification simply because how do we sort of see this? One is we have a factory in Baroda, sustainable farming. It's not just we produce something and just ship it out. Our belief is that we also have a responsibility to the community. The sustainable farming is very important. We try and build a community around where we are. Our procurement will hinge around 100, 150 kilometers around the facility or the factory that we have.
Right.
So we try and create communities that can work with us.
Right.
We try and ensure the FPOs and the farming community, we are able to give them relatively more money than what they would otherwise end up going and getting
in the market.
This is the thought process that we have. And secondly, we believe that with all the facility that we are putting up here, we believe that Jebel Ali or in this part of the world is sitting in a very unique situation. For instance, the processing that we do in Baroda would largely hinge around the raw material, the fruits and the vegetables, which is around the 200 kilometers vicinity. But if I move into this place and set up a mirror here, the whole game changes. Simply because I see that I'm able to get my raw material from India and bring in here. And your ability to innovate is very different from here. And you must remember that it's not enough to produce only what an Indian diaspora wants.
Sure.
If you sort of have a presence here, you will start creating products which is also going to look at, for example, an Arab diaspora who are living in here. Maybe you can start creating something very different for a European requirement. So that flexibility comes in. So we are looking at a scenario established very strongly in India, have setups around the country, and gradually coming into here. And how do we serve the global market apart from serving the Gulf market?
Understood.
So the food is going to be an integral part of the whole business.
Got it.
strategy as we go along. Shipping backs it up. The warehousing and distribution are readily there with us. And we want to become also distributors, because we also see that there are numerous companies today in India. And we are here to provide them with that access for them to reach the market. I know that a lot of mid-level companies sitting in the US or other parts of the world, they all know that there is a massive market here in this part of the world. But how do I come?
Exactly.
Who can I trust? Who's going to take care of my needs? These are all challenges what they have. So our task is to kind of enable all of this, enable global trade, bring it here, act as a kind of a bridge, be a strong distributor, build trust with them, and ensure we are able to take care of everything, including invoicing to collection of the money to distribution and the whole works of it.
Because you understand the risk, right?
That's right.
You understand how to manage the credit risk here in the market.
So a lot of people want to come in but don't know how to come in. For example, you can talk of the Middle East, you can talk of India. It looks like a very interesting market, but it has its own inbuilt risks.
Opportunity comes with some challenges, right?
So some people don't want to take that openly, but they want to deal with someone who can handle it for them. So we are getting into that kind of a beautiful position where we can enable, we can foster trade to grow faster.
The food processing business, Ramesh, is this going to be in your brand, or is it going to be white labeled? Is it bulk? Is it retail? Can you throw some light on that?
This has just gone on stream about 6 months back. Initial thought process is to white label, not to compromise on quality, look at the sustainability and consistent supply, and start. And we now have phenomenally strong buyers who are already wanting to do business with us simply because there is integrity that we have built into it, quality that we have built into it. I know there are a number of people who compromise on quality to get an order. That's not something that we believe. We will never ever compromise on what we want to do, and therefore we will ensure that we are getting the best of the customers who want to deal with us. So that's the kind of thinking that we have. Yes, as you rightly said, these big companies, they want us to white label it. But yes, we do have our own ambitions in times to come, where we will have our own clear-cut set of brands which will be ready to eat and ready to cook and all of that. That will come out in the market. But we are not in a great hurry to do that tomorrow. But we want to first stabilize ourselves, establish ourselves, get the foundation strong.
Get the back end right. This could be a logical extension at some point of time. Ramesh, so let's kind of switch tack to institutionalization. And I'd like to pick up two themes with you. Obviously, with scale, there's only so much that you can do as an individual. So can you kind of talk us through what are the initiatives you're taking on both sides? Right? One is about what kind of tech platforms you're brought in. What is the future looking there? And also, how did you go about building a leadership team, empowering them, and making sure that they stay with you?
Yeah, very interesting question. Like I said at the beginning, my task is to build the leadership team first. It's not necessary that you can be a master of everything that you want to. I think it's the question of your being able to build a strong team who start believing in your vision and they start working on what is really required. That's a given thing, that's something which you can't escape. You've got to do it. So we have some phenomenally strong guys who are the CEOs and COOs and MDs and VPs of different companies at different levels. They take almost every decision that is really required, and it gets monitored very, very closely to see how things are being done. That's part of the management of the operations. We have a very good CIO and his team here. The backend is completely with Oracle, including the finance and as well as the WMS and the TMS and everything else that is being run. We have a very powerful CRM system that's driving customer relationships, etc., etc. But I think what is also necessary is to continually look at what is it that Gen Z, for example, what is it that they would want to see? What is it that you have to reflect as visibility? For example, somebody is trusting you and asking you to keep 500 SKUs or pallets in your facility. I think it's necessary for them to have the visibility. It is necessary for them to see where it is and how it is being handled. So you got to be working on a scenario where you got to be upping your creativity every time. So we have an innovation team. What they sit down and do is to go on looking at a potentially what clients are asking for. What is it today's generations are looking for?
Right.
We also align ourselves with a number of beautiful universities in India,
Okay.
where we try and support the startup ecosystem.
Right.
We clearly define our pain points and what is our challenge. And we find that phenomenal results come out of some of those places in Kerala. Some of those guys sitting in Udaipur, IIM Udaipur, for instance. Some of those engineering universities in Dehradun, Petroleum Institute.
Right.
I mean, the kind of solutions we are able to get, and then we are able to easily integrate it and start putting it into practice.
Got it.
The thing is that how much ever you think you have technology, you find that the needs are going much ahead of what you create. It's a constantly evolving.
And you're trying to play catch up.
That's right. You're always trying to play catch up. So now we have taken a scenario, we've taken a call in the organization to think even what is not expected today,
Right.
we have to envision where we have to be 5 years or 7 years down the road and start creating channels. Because I do realize that computing costs have gone down substantially over the years.
Correct.
But implementation again, or the execution is where the challenge lies. You can have the best of the programs, but I think unless you identify the right executor who can go and do this with you along with your team, it becomes a challenge. That is the space that we are in. So when we have the large facility coming up, we want to architect all of this, taking into account what we should be offering somebody 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road.
You're really building for the future.
Absolutely.
It's going to be completely tech-enabled on day one. Really.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of issues to deal with because you can't scale yourself up if you don't have an updated technology that's going to drive it.
Correct.
But I also believe with all the right technology you have, you cannot displace human beings. So you need to have that ethos, you need to have that mix of the two to work along. That's my belief. I think work may get displaced. You may find if you don't upskill yourself, naturally you're going to be lost. So that's something which every human being will have to go through. So we have an academy that goes on and on with people, hands everyday training and on-the-job training to what's expected out of them, etc. This goes on a very regular basis.
Which is more the upskilling, reskilling aspect of it. Right?
That's right. But
to
I
help
think
to make sure that people don't kind of fall behind.
Absolutely. And that's so important, Venkat, because at the end of the day, if you don't skill them, you're going to be the one who's going to be losing opportunities.
Because you're getting lower productivity.
Absolutely. So it's a catch-up story, but at the same time, you've got to run faster and faster to catch up, It's a interesting phase to business. I only wish that I was 30, 40 years younger.
Sure. No, I think it's also interesting that the way you're looking at technology more as an opportunity than as a challenge, right? And I think it's a great takeaway for most of our listeners. People say, oh, AI is going to come. I don't know what's going to happen to my business. On the other hand, you say, let's see what we can do with AI.
Absolutely.
Over the next 5 years. Let's predict what the customer is going to need, and if I'm able to proactively do that, then maybe it becomes a competitive advantage, right, rather than it's being a threat. Right?
Absolutely.
So I just want to kind of go back, and maybe this is a bit of a micro issue. I think I heard you say that the Gen Z, the decision makers at average age is kind of coming down, and what they expect from you in terms of transparency or visibility is probably far higher than what they might have wanted, say, 5 years or 10 years back.
That's true.
So how do you really enable that, right? I mean, is this like computer vision? So how do you do condition monitoring?
I think it has to be a mix of everything. For example, if you were to store ice cream in your cold storage here in the freezer, I think it's necessary for them to know at what temperature it is being stored. Is there any intermittent handling that is happening? How carefully it is being dealt with? I think we need to be giving them the facility to see it, because I think it's also a question of seeing it. One is you can send your reports out on the WhatsApp. You can send out an email to tell them where it is. But seeing is still believing, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, you got to enable it in such a manner that anybody and everybody, once they sort of combine their system along with us, once it starts talking to each other, we should be able to relate all of this to them and they should be able to see it. Right. For example, if you're putting a container on a ship, it's necessary for them to know whether the cargo has arrived, stuffed into a box, put into a container, where is the container, when is it going to arrive into a port. These kind of visibilities are necessary because that's the only way where the client can also manage his working capital.
Correct.
That's the way he's going to manage his own business.
Because literally time is money here.
Absolutely.
Right? So,
and profitability is going to be coming out of how efficient you're going to run your business.
Correct.
So to us, it's a big challenge. That's where this innovation that we have.
Right.
We have a bunch of youngsters who sit down together with our tech guys and they go on challenging them. And this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we are looking at.
Right.
We also have a very interesting person who works in the FMCG side in the consumer market on the customer front facing actually. So they come and sit also with our team to say...
So this is literally your customer's customer.
That's right.
So in a sense,
They come and sit with us to say, this is what today this young lady is coming to this cosmetic store and asking. This is what we're looking at.
Right.
So we try and incorporate all of these things into the system that we are devising, into what we are creating. But it is a challenge. I must tell you that execution, getting the right people to handhold you, to work along with our CIO, get the right kind of system to kind of build that requirement, it is by itself a challenge. But I think that's what it is making it interesting. That's what is making it exciting. I mean, we are sitting in Dubai. I mean, here, it's virtually technology that's driving this economy.
Right.
Everything is taken away at the touch of a button. That's the kind of thinking that the government here has. And when they do all of this, and if you as a service provider, if you don't live up to that level...
But it's also very interesting what you said, Ramesh, is that sometimes to solve the problem expected to be solved by the new generation, you actually have partnerships with the academia back in India, where again, it's a Gen Z which is kind of trying to solve a problem. You know, sometimes you just need to have people of a similar mindset as your customer to be able to quickly relate to, empathize with the problem and solve it. So it's just a question of having an open mind and the ability to say that, okay, let me kind of put the problem out there and see, what kind of solutions come up.
Absolutely. Right? And I think that, again, this brings us to a point where one should have the willingness to adapt to these changing conditions. And I think if you're going to stay rigid and say that, hey, my way is the right way, then I don't think that we will be able to ever find an answer. I think that acceptance is very, very important in anything. But you can't be obviously sitting and going through all the technology and the way it is being done. But at the same time, if you don't know what is happening, what's happening in the AI...
You could become outdated.
I believe it's going to be interesting times, exciting times. Technology is going to play a significant role. Cost management is going to be very important. Optimization is going to be the game that is to be played. You can't be ignoring people. You got to give them the right kind of ability to grow. So it's a new challenge.
Right.
It's a completely new ecosystem that's evolving around us. But as an entrepreneur, I find it very exciting, very interesting, because every day you come into the office, you're looking at new challenges which are opportunities for you.
Correct.
And if you look at them as opportunities, you only grow. If you look at them as challenges, you're going to be thinking this is the end of the day for me. But I think it's exciting times ahead.
And to me, a lot of times it's also about the entrepreneur's ability to stay humble, because you don't necessarily control a lot of factors around you, especially the march of technology. I don't know how many people would have anticipated this, say, 10 years or 20 years back. So these are variables, the number of variables and the pace at which the variables change. It constantly evolves. As an entrepreneur, you may not necessarily be able to be on top of every variable every time, but at least the interplay of the variables, understanding what that variable is I think what most of us should do. And that can only come if you're going to stay humble, have an open mind to say that, look, maybe there's a new way of doing business. Let's kind of touch upon the people side. And I want to come to the leadership aspect, Ramesh, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, once they kind of hit a certain scale, they really kind of struggle with this conundrum. On one hand, they understand that, look, if they don't have a CEO, a CXO suite of thinking people who can potentially challenge you, who come with an independent thought process, they come with a subject matter expertise, they come with a deep understanding of the business, maybe at a scale that you're not at today, right? You need to kind of bring them on board. I think most entrepreneurs understand that. But they also struggle a lot with the loss of control, right? Most entrepreneurs have built their organizations from the scratch. They know exactly what's going on. They don't necessarily need an IT system to kind of figure out what's moving where. And once the CXOs come on board, I mean, they're obviously coming in with the right intent, they're trying to do the right thing, but things may not be the same as what it was before. Sometimes there's even could be an efficiency drop, right? How does an entrepreneur really think about this? And how does one be comfortable with this situation? Especially in the context, there are also horror stories, right? I mean, there are companies that have tried to professionalize, they've got the wrong teams on board, and forget about the money, they might have lost 3 to 5 years of opportunity. So how does an entrepreneur think about this?
Thank you for that beautiful question, Venkat. To me, there are two sets of entrepreneurs. One let's talk about today's entrepreneurs, the aspiring entrepreneurs who've ideas have sold and they've created a decent sized enterprise, and they have a dream which is actually triggering them to keep growing. And I find that some of them, or rather quite a number of them, don't have a good mentor. Getting mentored, getting coached is so important, because I think at that stage, you begin to realize that you need a CFO to help you to be more disciplined. You need a CFO to help you to think you have to be compliant. You cannot compromise the governance. Staying with your feet on the ground, having a good mentor, having a good coach, having a good mirror to reflect, regular introspection of what has gone right and wrong has to be done periodically. And I think fulfillment of all of that is extremely important, because you can't grow beyond a point if you think that I am beat and that's it, there's nothing that's going to happen. You need to understand this. This can only come up if you have your humility. It can be a guru, it can be your mentor. As long as you are able to reflect at the end of the day, what have I done right and what have I done wrong?
Almost seeing yourself in the mirror.
That's right. That will give you that solid grounding to grow. That's one side of the entrepreneurs.
Right.
The other side of the entrepreneurs, what I've seen is, I think largely people like us, who've grown over the last so many years to kind of build an organization. It's very difficult, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to think that, oh, I did it all. How do I trust somebody? Will he be able to fulfill and do exactly what I want him to do?
Right.
How do I give him that responsibility? How do I let go? These are all fundamentally the same issues any entrepreneur will go through. So letting go and having the ability to have that confidence itself needs a lot of mindset change.
Right.
It's not easy for everyone and everybody to do that. But I think over a period of time today, I've also begun to realize that the only way for us to scale up and grow is by being able to empower and create a beautiful team around.
Right.
I do find that a lot of enterprises, a lot of companies, those have been in existence for a long period of time, today are creating a very strong base around them.
Right.
They want them to be challenged. They are willing to answer questions. They are prepared to go through this process of people questioning the decisions that they have made.
Right.
But I see this is a marked difference from what it was maybe 30, 40, 50 years back. So the younger generation needs to be coached, mentored. They need to have somebody who's going to handle them. Introspection is very important. And at the same time, the older generation have to start building a point of trust. All the CXOs are going to be much younger. You need to be adapting yourself and accepting these big changes which they are going to bring to the table. What I did in the first 40 years, you don't expect to reach your goal if you do the same thing for the next 40 years. It has to change radically. But that ability to remain flexible, accept, adapt, and give people the freedom to think, and then start accepting all of that and putting it in place is not an easy task.
The question is how, right? See, because a lot of times when CXOs come in, everybody comes with the right intent, right?
Yeah.
But mistakes happen. And when the first mistake happens, probably the entrepreneur says, okay, let it go. The second time it happens. And I'm talking about strategic errors sometimes. And then beyond the second time, right, the tendency is to kind of jump in. And then you don't know when that jumping in turns to micromanagement, right?
Yes. I fully agree with you, because this is the crossroad.
Right.
This is truly the crossroad that you go through. In my own case, if I employ somebody, I'm going to trust him and give him the responsibility on day one. But if I notice that things have not gone as per what he promised to deliver, much against his own wish sometimes, it's quite possible that he has got a good intent, but things are not working. You could perhaps give him an opportunity one time, two times, three times actually. But after that, one should be able to again have the courage to replace him with somebody else who is going to be in alignment and trying to deliver it actually.
Right.
But it's not an easy call. No. These are just not easy. I think it's a question of mindset. And it needs a completely different kind of a mind to accept and adapt and do that. But I think sooner people do it, the sooner people are able to take this risk, that's what is going to give you the reward as well.
So somewhere you're saying that, look, once you decide to institutionalize, you're committing to a certain path. So the solution to somebody not working is to probably cut the losses at some point
Yeah.
and bring a different CXO in and work to make sure that that succeeds rather than you're jumping in and trying to take back the control. I mean, that the commitment to the path is what is the key thing over here.
Absolutely. It's very, very important because otherwise you're going to sort of reverse the whole thing. So I think it has to be very meaningful. It is necessary. It's important that we got to look at the right people. And you may go wrong, but that doesn't mean anything. You can still develop something. If an individual goes wrong with his thoughts, ideas, concepts, you may have to replace him with somebody else.
Right.
Even he may go wrong.
Right.
But that willingness to look at that as an entrepreneur, I think is extremely important. Just as you need technology, you need all of that. I think it's not an easy choice, but one has to go
Has to
through
make
this.
that choice.
You've got to give them the trust, build them up, and then see where it is going.
Fair enough. So if we can now switch tack to building the next gen within the family, which is also a bit of a hot button topic, Ramesh, right? Because the young kids, again, they come with the right intent, but they've grown up in a very different environment to what you might have grown up, right? Maybe they haven't seen want to the extent to which you might have. It does have a lot of times a big impact on the ambition or fire in the belly. It could have an impact on capability.
Yes.
And you're also in a situation where now there are professionals, who have obviously kind of got into that position with the dint of their hard work, their experience. But equally, the younger generation now needs to be groomed. So what is your advice to other entrepreneurs? I mean, how does one start to kind of think about avoiding a sense of entitlement, but equally giving them the space to kind of grow into that role?
I think every entrepreneur, every family-owned business will certainly go through these challenges. In my case, I have my son and my daughter working in the organization. I think it's important for me to first gauge and decide, one is competence, the other thing is I must know the path that I want them to go by, and I have to ensure that there is no overstepping on each other's feet. You have to put the yellow lines in place even before you want to do that. Then, of course, comes the family values and what they have seen and how we have all gone through our life. And even when they come in the first place, it's very clear that they have to go and work somewhere else, come in and join as one of the management trainees at that kind of a level. Then they have to start working and interacting with each one of the departments, go through all of that and learn what is happening.
Right.
And in this journey, I've seen that they will have their own hardships because what happens is the acceptance of them. That's my son's journey, right? He has to find a methodology.
Right.
How does he adapt to these requirements? Humility is extremely important. It is for them to build their own bridges. And I think, in my opinion, it's the relationships.
Right.
It is the kind of closeness with which they are able to interact with their colleagues or seniors. For example, there are many people who worked with me for many, many years. But that doesn't mean that my son is going to gain the same level of respect from them.
And that's a personalized journey.
Absolutely.
The trust is not going to get automatically transferred.
He has to build his own kind of relationships. He has to create his own kind of bonding with all of these people. They have to earn it, and he has to earn it as well. So this is very clear. I think 15, 16 years Ritesh has been in the game. I think for the first few years has been a struggle, but he has now found his space. He has found his comfort. He's found his own set of people with whom he beautifully works. I think that's extremely important. So he went through this journey where he's going to be not kind enough dealing with people, because ultimately I keep saying that it's people. How do you deal with them? How do you handle them? Because they're not machines.
Right.
It's what kind of a bridge, what kind of a relationship that you can have with them. So Ritesh has over the years learned this very well. So his connect with human beings also has been a very strong point in the next generation.
Got it.
On the other hand, my daughter, she has seen it all actually. Again, this aspect of humility is very strongly embedded in her. And she runs the family investment side of the business. She looks after the corporate social responsibility. She looks after the philanthropy. So the track is very clear.
Right.
So she does a certain aspect of the job. She's got a set of people who reports to her.
Right.
There are people with who she works with. And my wife is a very strong person. And she virtually manages the family to be together You will always have challenges, you'll always have issues.
Right.
But the important thing is everybody's got a role to play.
Sure.
And she does her role brilliantly well,
Right.
making sure that they're all working together.
Right.
So to me, the young generations have to believe in your family's values. It has to understand what the family is standing for, what is the higher purpose for which that you're all in existence. How do I create bridges with my people? How do I understand the challenge that they go through? How do I create a team around myself?
Right.
How do I kind of understand the ecosystem? It's a very dynamic scenario. They have to be like any professional CEO who comes
Right.
in and runs the business. They have to be competent. They have to know what their jobs are. They have to deliver. So you cannot mix up all of these things.
Correct.
Emotions is one side, deliverables another side, So that's something which we have to keep in mind
Right.
and allow them to blossom, grow, and become superb individuals. So you give them that confidence and give them the ability, go out and work, be humble, learn the mechanisms, create bonding, relationships, and start working together, build a team, make it inclusive, share your thoughts, be transparent, integrity, never ever compromise, do everything, do it in a manner that you're supposed to do. So
Very
there's a lot of things. I think each family will have to look at this, but it is the most difficult
Exactly. Yeah.
challenge that everybody goes through.
Because you never know when disagreements in the office
Yeah.
can kind of enter your living room, and it's tough. I think it's tough on both the generations.
Absolutely.
Right? You need to be kind of clear in your own mind about separating the two relationships. Ramesh, let's now come to the other aspect of, say, monetization of wealth. For most entrepreneurs we work with, this in terms of value is possibly the latent value of the enterprise that they run. And especially when you have a legacy as long as, say, 48 years, 50 years, right? The natural thought is, look, should I be looking to monetize this? Should I do an IPO? Should I do private equity? And there is no dearth of iBankers and financiers who want to kind of do business with you. What's the right way to think about this? When you're at a certain scale, money is an essential ingredient. If you have more money, potentially you could grow the business even faster. But equally, taking that money comes with a different set of responsibilities. Right? It comes with having to answer external shareholders that you probably don't need to do today. It also comes with the tricky equation of whether I think 5 years, 10 years from today, or do I need to start thinking quarter on quarter? So what's your advice to entrepreneurs? How should they be thinking? It's very tempting, right? When somebody comes and says, I'm going to give you X $100 million valuation or $1 billion valuation, do you take it, or do you decide to kind of chart your own path?
It's a very difficult scenario, I think, especially if you have worked and created an enterprise and you are going to be thinking, am I going to be answerable to someone? Am I going to be responsible that I have to share results every quarter? Am I going to have independent directors who are going to ask me questions? Should I go and, let's say, bring a private equity who's, without knowing the business, he'll start driving you around the bend to only see numbers? Do I allow somebody else to come in and sit with me? How do I deal with all of these kind of situations? At the same time, you said the latent value of any business is going to be sitting inside the business. And most entrepreneurs may not have an ability to raise some level of capital or get something out of their business, maybe for a sunny day or for the growth of the business itself. This is actually a very, very challenging scenario where you may want, you may not want, you may have emotions around it, you build something up, you don't want to give it away to somebody. These are a lot of things that goes through your mind. I would believe that if you believe in your business, if you believe the success in your business, and if you think that there is a future, there is no harm done in looking at diluting some part of your holding and trying to get some money on the table.
Right.
Because that is the way you secure yourself, secure today's generation, future generation, and whoever is going to work with you.
Correct.
There's no harm done, but it has to be a very well thought out
through,
exercise. It's not bad. It's not all good all the time. But I think it is something which should not be hesitated.
Right.
If there isn't a golden opportunity, if something is looking at you and you are differentiated yourself from other products in the market,
Right.
you will command a value.
Right.
And when is it and how is it that you want to encash that value to some extent should not be hesitated.
Right.
I would encourage you to do it. Maybe, yes, compliances are very high. People are going to ask you questions and all of that. But I still believe that one needs to go through that journey because that's going to give you the flexibility to grow your business to a next level.
Right.
Or start something exciting, which is
Right.
going to be also growing on the side,
Right.
So these are very interesting phases.
Right.
Again, the family or that set of people who have developed, grown it, it's a call that they have to make. It's a lesson that they have to kind of take out of this. Not easy. You need to look at it in a realistic method. Do I need safety? Do I need cash on the table? Or do I put it all into the business? And should something happen to the family, where do we go? Actually, these sort of questions need to be dealt with and handled all the time. Then you come up with a realistic answer.
As entrepreneurs, you've got to think about the life of a business beyond our own physical lives.
Yeah.
And sometimes external equity is a good way of ensuring that happens,
right.
Because you've got other people
Yeah.
who have also got a stake in the business. And if it's a financial investor as opposed to a strategic, then probably it's a lot more objective
Yeah.
and unemotional kind of money that is coming in, right?
Yeah.
Which is more likely to do what is right for the business
Yes.
without having a clouded judgment. So you're really saying that, look, there's no right or wrong answer, but give it a serious thought.
Absolutely.
What seems to be saying,
Yes.
right? Let me now come to Harvard. It's kind of interesting you were able to take the time out. It's never easy, right? Because you're all running up businesses, life is busy. To take out 3 weeks per year for 3 years. So what was the thought behind taking up the Harvard course? And I mean, how did life really change after the course?
No, I think, see, for me, I'm 64 now. When I did this course, I was 55. To me, one thing that has always been ringing in my mind is to be relevant. And see, I never had the luxury of going to a great university when I did my BCom in Bombay. To me, my relevance was not because it was Harvard or it was MIT or it was something else. But to me, I felt that you need to be relevant and you need to see what's happening. You need to understand how minds of entrepreneurs work. And that was one of the driving points that sort of encouraged me to go there. Having gone there, I must say that the kind of bonding, the friendships, the kind of relationship that I have built over the last maybe 7, 8, 10 years since I came out of that place has been phenomenal. It's a lifelong learning. It's a lifelong bonding. It's a lifelong friendship that you have been able to create through this network.
Right.
I don't think money can buy this. I mean, we learn a lot more after we came out of this. And every time we come up with good ideas, it's not that somebody is going to take away your idea. It's just that you start sharing and learning.
It's a lot more collaborative.
I think that's one great learning that I got out of Harvard Business School, and the friendship.
Okay, fantastic. So as we wind down, Ramesh, what are your top 3 advice to entrepreneurs? If there were, 2 or 3 principles that have kind of worked well for you, what is it that you would like to share with the audience?
Definitely, I think to me, it is patience.
Right.
You got to be very patient. You cannot start seeing results overnight. You have to persist with your passion. You got to persist. You got to persist with what you truly believe in. And you got to have the passion to drive you and get you to reach your goals. So I think these 3 P's are something which you cannot take off. You got to be patient about it. You got to be persistent. And passion can never be replaced because passion is not that you create one day morning and it disappears the next day morning. This has to be something that is fueling you every day, every minute, every morning. And have a long-term vision. To me, enterprises should not be built and sold in 2 years. That's my formula. I may be right or wrong is a different thing. But to me, you got to have that long-term play in mind. How do I build an institution? How do I build and have so many people working for you, creating that kind of an ecosystem? That's important to me. So for the younger generation, patience and patience and patience, most important. Persistence, perseverance can never be displaced.
Perfect. This has been wonderful. It's inspiring. Right, I'm coming away from this session very energized. It was wonderful to kind of close today's session with the 3 P's of passion, patience, and persistence. For me, the key takeaways from today's interaction with Ramesh is really about how your origins, your humble roots, don't necessarily kind of define where you can go in life. It's wonderful to have experience somebody who has got his feet very firmly on the ground, but the head's above the clouds, right, in terms of where the company can kind of scale up to. The other thing which I learned today from Ramesh is really about staying put in difficult circumstances, especially in the early stages or when you set up the business, but also the constant focus on thinking about the customer's needs and going even beyond and thinking about the customer's customer and saying that, look, what are the different ways in which their problems can be mitigated by me? To me, this is a story of how integration has happened, not by keeping the company's plans in mind, by keeping the customer's plans in mind. I think that's a very important takeaway, I think, from today's session. The other aspect that came through very strongly in this interaction with Ramesh is about the focus on people and about trusting them, the starting point. And this is so beautiful to hear. Look, once I've decided to hire somebody, then I'm going to trust him wholeheartedly, unless there is something to the contrary that comes to my notice. I do want to thank Ramesh for being so candid. Is about how does one deal with family in business. It's a very, very tricky subject for a lot of us entrepreneurs. We want desperately for our kids to succeed, but in our over-enthusiasm, are we over-protecting them? Are we over-engineering for their success? Or do we give them a direction and let them create their own path? And I think Ramesh has been very honest and very candid in sharing his own personal experiences of how he has tried to achieve that balance. End of the day, every entrepreneur wants to be successful. They want to leave a legacy. They want to create their social impact. But it's so enriching to see different routes and different paths that entrepreneurs take. And I've been truly privileged today to learn a little bit more about Ramesh's path to getting to your goals. So thanks a ton, Ramesh. I really appreciate your time, your candor, and I think your pithiness. It's never easy to kind of condense 50 years of experience into a 1 hour podcast, but thank you for articulating the wisdom so nicely.
Thank you so much, Venkat, for coming in and seeing me. And I think it gives me a great opportunity to go deep dive and see what has happened. And I hope whatever I have shared is heard, and if it can help a few people,
absolutely,
I'd be more than delighted. Thank you so much for coming in and doing this session with me. And thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.